Greetings, growers worldwide. Jordan River here, back with more GrowCast for you. And I am an island boy. Today we have Molokai Kevin on the line. To the members, you know who this is. He's an amazing guest. He's a grower from Hawaii. He's been growing there for decades. This is a really cool deep dive into Hawaiian genetics, Hawaiian growing styles, and the island of Molokai, maybe the most unique Hawaiian island. And Molokai Kevin is plugged in. He's been growing a long time. He's an organic grower. He's had his hands on a lot of old school genetics. This episode is an awesome deep dive into Hawaii and some really cool stories. But before we get into it with Molokai Kevin, gotta give my love to AC Infinity, one of my favorite partners, acinfinity.com, code GrowCast15. What do you find at AC Infinity? Just about everything you need to get growing, and their products are the best. They have their own engineers, and they manufacture the most sturdy, reliable products in the game. The best tents, I stand by this. The best grow tents in the game are AC Infinity tents. Code GrowCast15 saves you 15% site-wide. The best inline fans in the game, AC Infinity fans. The S Series has a 10-speed fan controller. It's cheaper. It's super, super nice. The Light Series is even more affordable. And then there's the nice T Series with the controller that mounts right outside of your tent. Lets you control your climate and humidity. We love AC Infinity. They also make lights and pots and scissors and ratchets and so much more. The best in the game. GrowCast stands behind them. Find everything at acinfinity.com. Code GrowCast15 for 15% off. And always send us a screenshot of you using our code so you can be entered to win free seeds each and every month. That's acinfinity.com. Code GrowCast15. Get your tents, get your lights, get your fans, everything you need. Some of my favorite grow gear in the game. AC Infinity, everyone. All right, let's get into it with Kevin. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Hello, podcast listeners. You are now listening to GrowCast. I'm your host, Jordan River, and I want to thank you for tuning in again today. Before we get started, as always, I urge you, share the show, turn someone on to growing. Tell them about GrowCast. You can find us on Spotify, on any podcast app, and all over the place, always. You know the drill. To see what we're doing, go to growcastpodcast.com/action. There you'll see the classes and the membership, which may have closed its doors by now, and Seedco and all that fun stuff. So check it out, everybody. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your support. Hope you're doing incredible things in your garden. Today we are taking a little trip to Hawaii. This episode has been long overdue. The members already are familiar with this guest, but a first-time guest here on the main podcast. You guys know I spent some time out in Hawaii, and it was awesome connecting with the cultivators out there. And one of my favorite people that I met out there is a man simply known as Molokai Kevin. What's up, Kevin? How are you doing, my friend?
Hey, aloha, my brother Jordan. How you doing, my man? Nice to hear from you once again.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming on the show, on the audio podcast here. So I kind of have to set the stage. Again, for the members, they're already familiar with Kevin. He's been on GrowCast TV a couple of times. He's showed us around Hawaii and shown us his grow and all sorts of fun stuff. But for the listeners, my family lives out there in Hawaii, and when I go and visit, it always shocks me the deep level of cannabis culture out there. And there are many Hawaiian islands, but one island in particular, Molokai, really seems to be the place where a lot of the cannabis growing took place over the years. It's like the grow hub of that area, and it's an unusual island. It's very, very low population. There's only like 7,000 people on the whole island. It's very slow. It's very quiet. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. And that's where Molokai Kevin resides. And how long have you been there, Kevin? Maybe we can start from the beginning. Can you talk a little bit about your history in Hawaii and also what brought you to growing, I think, before that? But please, you tell me.
Yeah, no worries. No, I moved to Hawaii back in 1992 from Southern California. Wanted to get out of Southern California and had a couple of my older classmates from high school that already had a house and a gig set up on the North Shore of Oahu, and what a perfect spot to go. So I packed up all my stuff, sold my old school Dodge Challenger, moved on over to the North Shore, and just wanted to make it happen. I mean, the first plant I ever grew was like when I was 16 back in California. You know how that goes.
Yeah, damn, dude. You've been growing forever.
Yeah, so got some seeds, out of some of the herb that we'd scored from my older brother's friend. And, it was just that Sensimilia strain, it was from Mexico, it's nothing too crazy, but, it was fun. And, half of them, we didn't know our ass from our elbow at that point in time, We're like, oh, what's a male? What's a female? Oh, okay, we got the female. Oh, wait, no, we got males too. Oh, what's going on? Now we got seeds everywhere. But just did a couple plants there, and then when I moved to Hawaii, why I started growing is like, gosh, you moved to Hawaii, and it was like, okay, I'm in Hawaii. Damn it, this is like, everybody knows about the Kona Gold and the Maui Wowie and the Kauai
Yeah.
Electric. It's like, what? And honestly, it was like something that I was drawn to, but then it also was like a necessity so I could surf most of the time and not really have to work. But little did I know it, that growing herb guerrilla bush style
Was a lot of
sometimes
work.
it's a lot of work.
You're like, oh man, I can't be working a fucking job. And next thing you know, you're lugging like a 50-gallon reservoir on your back through the bush.
Bags of media out to the bush in the middle of the night, with a spotlight and all that. But and it was kind of like a little out of necessity to kind of make some cash and survive so I could support my surfing habit.
Jeez, man.
And that's where the fun began. It was a little sketch ball growing back then, especially in Hawaii.
Yeah.
I mean, anywhere back in the 90s, early 80s, cultivating this fine medicinal magical herb that we have, it was crazy because, they wanted to put everybody in jail for life if you just grew a freaking plant. So
Right. I was surprised at how harsh Hawaii seems on cannabis. I mean, after medical legalization, it seems a little bit different now. But just a few years ago, all the way back through like the 90s, like you said, it seems like you and all the people that I talked to said, no, it was really hard to grow here. They had their own version of camp, their own version of the cannabis police, right? What were they called? Green Harvest or something like that. Like you guys had it rough.
yeah, they flew helicopters consistently, you could never figure out their schedule because we're in Hawaii, so we can grow year round. So, I mean, man, not only did we have eyes in the sky, but they were working with the Coast Guard, and on Oahu is pretty much one big military base. So they would work with them to use infrared flyovers and
Jeez, dude.
the DEA. The military would do maneuvers and trainings in the back, and they would work with the local police just to go and if they saw patches out in the bush, I mean, it was on like Donkey Kong. Sometimes they would wait, set up traps and wait and try and get guys that are out there in the bush going to check on their patches. And I mean, crazy.
Jeez, yeah, that's pretty hard. Those are some paramilitary operations. From the mainland, we get this impression like it's very cannabis friendly. They're almost like California in the early 2000s type era, which also had its problem, but it just seemed a little more strict than I thought. Can we take a little bit of a trip down memory lane? Let's say you're out there in the bush, you're growing. What were the strains that you were growing at the time? What size of operations were you working on? What was the biggest grow that you were working on back then?
The biggest grow, I mean, when we started off, it was like 50 to 100 plants, you know what I mean? We were still, cloning wasn't a huge thing back then, it was still a lot of people doing old school style with just seeds and just throwing them out there and then sexing them and stuff like that. So like in the early 90s, like I said, I hooked up with a bunch of old school hippies, from back in the day that moved from like, Northern California up to the North Shore and things like that. And those guys were like, oh my God, like ganja gurus for real, and a lot of guys, they had their PhDs or their doctorates in horticulture and botany and things like that. And then just kind of went in that direction, came back out here, kind of, get away from all society and just kind of do their thing. So we started doing a lot of clones. And so some of the strains that we got back in the day was like the original Salmon Creek Big Bud. This one called the Sage, another one called the QJ, which was a quantum jump. And, a lot of the old school, like, hash strains, we had some ones called the Duck Feet, which was, I mean, my friend's grandfather, you know what I mean? He was like freaking 80 years old, this old Filipino man. And he had this strain, the Duck Feet, that was just ridiculous. I mean, it was like similar to, the height and the grow time, the cultivating time of, like, say, the God's gift. But man, it was just a freaking hash berry plant. I mean, the thing was so, I mean, it just didn't matter how long you cured it. If you tried to twist a doob up with that thing would be like resin monster.
Wow. Was that it? Now you call it the duck. There's a strain called Duckfoot that has the weird leaves. Is it similar to that one, or were the leaves normal?
No, that's it.
That's the one I'm talking about. Okay. Wow. So that Duckfoot used to turn into hash really well?
Oh my God, it was just a hash plant. I mean, it was just a super sticky, just gross. I mean, that thing was hard to roll a doob back in the day. And, that was, like I said, that original strain I saw back in like 93, 94. And it just shows that, there's that genetics is still around. I guarantee it's not the original genetics, but it's primarily, they've got whatever genetics they wanted out of that one and mixed and matched to whatever.
Right, and it's still around. Look, it even says Hawaiian Duckfoot. I brought up Duckfoot strain, and the first thing that's coming up is Hawaiian Duckfoot. Wow, that is fascinating. I love the strains with different morphologies, right? They have the Freak Show, which looks like a fern, and they have the Australian Bastard Cannabis, which has like weird kind of like oregano leaves, but bigger. And the Duckfoot I never got to try, man. That's really cool that you were growing a lot of this for its intended purpose, too. You were out in the bush, so you didn't want it to look like a 5-fingered marijuana leaf. You wanted it to look like something else.
We got like, a lot of the old school strains, like the original Northern Lights, the original skunk strains, all that. Pretty much, a lot of the little genetics came over from, the mainland. And even we had, some strains, the BC from British Columbia, before they got even to where they were at. So we had a lot of those old strains, the Super Sage. And then we had the ones, from over here, from guys from Hawaii that went to Vietnam and came back with the original Thai stick strains, the original, strains from Vietnam that really don't have a name, one was called the Ho Chi Minh, and that's just because, the guy was stationed in Ho Chi Minh and was out there for some weed out there and bring it back. So a lot of the strains, it was just like, just kind of go with whatever Uncle told us it was. And sometimes we didn't even have a name. It's just seeds, It's like guys had seeds and they're like, I don't know what the strain this is. It just came from one of my patches.
You still do that out there, man. Molokai strain. Everyone's telling me this is Molokai strain. That's not I know it's not the same strain. There's multiple Molokai strains. That is really funny. And everyone is an uncle or an auntie in Hawaii. So that's also quite funny. So uncle's got the cut or whatever, but he won't give it up.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And there's still lots of guys like that. There's some old schoolers that still hold, like there's some old schoolers here that have some of the original Molokai strains and they always hold those things to heart. They don't even give them to their family. You know what I mean? It's like, it's going to go die with them. It's like, it's going to their grave.
That's dedication, man.
That's how trippy it is. But they got to realize, man, you got to spread that love so those genetics don't disappear,
Well, that has happened. You said you grew the skunk back in like the 90s or early 2000s.
Yeah.
For the listener, Molokai Kevin is not intentionally not plugged into the matrix. He's not on Instagram seeing all the beef and drama in the cannabis industry. So I'm going to ask you this, Kevin. It pertains to something that it's died down largely, but it was a big deal in 2022, is people were talking about roadkill skunk. Old school roadkill skunk. That's that weed that smelled like a dead, rotting skunk or skunk spray on the side of the road, right? And the argument is that you can't find that shit anymore. That roadkill skunk doesn't exist like it used to. Now, some people argue that's more nostalgia. Other people say it was bred out, that people don't grow it because those types of genetics were unstable. There's this whole argument going on around it. But the skunk that you grew, was it before it kind of became sweeter? Was it the original roadkill skunk, or would you not classify it as that?
That's like OG Bobby Johnson roadkill skunk. I mean, that stuff was so fucking stinky nasty. And that was the problem with growing that in big patches out here, because Hawaii, we no more skunks. So when you have a big patch of that and that stuff is ranking, all you got to do is follow your nose and you find that bugger. I mean,
wow, because there are no skunks, so it can't be a skunk.
Yeah, it can be a skunk. Nothing smells like that.
Yeah, you gave us a bunch of seeds to pass out through the genetics. Super, super generous of you, man. That was awesome of you to do for the community, and yeah, we appreciate that. But they say that that you really can't find that anymore
Mhm.
without the old seed stock.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, and you got to. I mean, I have not. I mean, I've had run in with a lot of people growing, quote unquote, the skunk. Nah, sorry. The closest thing it smells like is like the chem dog, and
Right.
and that's what a lot of people I found crossed into their skunk to make it like that stinky, greasy, diesely, gross smell. But nothing compares to that roadkill. Just smells like you just got sprayed. Skunk that used to. I mean, that's what we used to grow. One of the strains we used to grow.
Man, man, oh
Yeah.
man. Well, we'll see. We'll see. If the skunk wars rage on now, people are hunting for this terp. But growing up, I had a lot of like cat piss. That was like California cat piss weed, like nicer, bright green, no seeds. That's the type of like good weed that we got in like high school. But we didn't get much skunk out in Chicago.
Yeah, right before I was leaving California, we got hooked up with a bunch of older cats that were from Canada. You know what I mean? And they were bringing down some of the Canadian indoor herb, the BC and some other strains that I couldn't even, I don't even remember. And that's when it started to really be like, ooh, look at this stuff.
High
You can
quality
tell.
stuff.
Yeah, high
Yeah.
quality joints, big, healthy, just because everybody was growing indoors up there. You know
Right.
what I mean? And still, California, even though it was the Green Triangle in NorCal and Humboldt and all that stuff, there wasn't all that many big indoor growers in the 90s and the late 80s. You know what I mean? If they were, I mean, it was definitely wasn't making it out all that much to certain areas. It was more controlled. But
Right.
then when the guys from Canada started just going nuts, I mean, we got a lot of that in Southern California. So that was really interesting.
Yeah, there's that link, man, between California and Hawaii, going all the way back to the Brotherhood of Eternal Love and like all their work in the cannabis industry and trading genetics. And now you're talking about the NorCal growers like moving out there like during that part of the generation and teaching people all sorts of cultivation science. It's very, very interesting, that West Coast and Hawaiian connection. But yeah, I love this idea of you out in the bush, like doing this guerrilla style for a living for a long time. That must have been pretty wild. Did you ever get close to getting caught or anything like that? Do you have any stories, like I said, lugging stuff or running from the
Oh,
cops?
man. Yeah, I mean, gosh, there's been more than a handful of times out there, you know. Usually where we were growing, luckily I was working with some old school cats, some big Hawaiian families that had they're as they say, no scared cause out here. They're Hawaiians and this is their land.
What?
I don't give a fuck if the military put a chain across this gate. We getting back there, you know what I mean? And so, we had a pretty good, like, I would be considered, the young buck considered to the guys that I was working with.
Uh huh.
And so, we would have lookouts and things like that to look for helicopters and look out for Green Harvest guys, the DEA, and those guys parked in certain areas and things like that. But the Green Harvest, those helicopters, man, those guys can just pop up out of nowhere. And if you're out in the bush, and we've had that happen where we were just ready for harvest. I mean, we were all out there ready to go. We had our machetes, our loppers, and we were good to go. And then next thing you know, all we hear is tuk, 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 tuk. And usually they do 3 helicopters. Two, what they are is the 2 fire department helicopters, which they're bright green, and then they have a Coast Guard guy that comes out and he's got the infrared, and then they just do these scans, and man, they just popped right on top of us.
What
And
the
at that
fuck?
point in time, it was just run, because they will drop down and they will like repel, like you see in
What?
the movie. Oh yeah, and they will drop. They usually have 2 to 4 guys per helicopter, and then what they do is they have guys working on the ground, and so they'll run coordinates, and next thing you know, they've got the stormtroopers, as we call them, coming towards the patch, and they do, their full military tactics, try and surround you and stuff like that. But, we've been back in the bush way longer than these knuckleheads. So, we know where the pig trails go. We know where there's, little caverns and crazy places that we can hide. And I mean, we were probably like, 2 minutes away from all of us getting incarcerated. And the crazy thing is, some of the old school cats that I work with were all ex-military vets.
Right.
And, those guys set booby traps. You know what I mean? Like, they weren't like booby traps where, they were freaking booby traps.
Fuck you up booby traps?
Fuck you up booby traps. Like, you fucking come across those booby traps, you're probably either going to die or lose a limb. You know what I mean?
Jeez.
These guys knew how to make ordnance, things like that, to that nature, and that just shows you, everybody thinks, well, man, all these just these hippies growing weed and peace, love, and harmony. It's like, not like that, partner. I mean, because some of these guys, this was their living. This is how they supported their family, and they had big families. So, we used to, there was a saying, Uncle Charlie said, what, bro? We always grow 3, one for us, one for the cops, and one for the rippers cops. You know what I mean? And that's how it was. We'd have to do that. We'd have to set up 3 crops for, just to make it. And it wasn't just us, there was other guys, cropping out in the bush too. And they took it serious, just as serious. So people would respect certain areas. Like if you were one of the crew, everybody kind of had their own designated spots. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But there's always some fucking knucklehead or some fucking guy that's always like, especially rippers, guys that are on drugs, hard drugs, trying to go out into the bush and rip people's shit off so they can go buy fucking ice or bad drugs and things like that, you know. And that would just ruin it for everybody, because next thing you know, those guys go out into the bush and they just ruin everybody's spot and make it hot and get conflict between everybody. But yeah, and I mean, we had plenty of times where, I mean, even on Molokai, we were out doing it. We had about a 2,500 plant fucking little operation going, and same thing. They weren't supposed to be flying green harvest, and next thing you know, poop. And you know how Molokai is. Not too many places to go running high.
Yeah, oh my God. You can drive from one side of the island to the other in like 90 minutes. It's so small. What do? Yeah. You got to hide. You can't run. You have to hide.
Yeah, not too many trees and foliage on this side of the island to go run and hide from. So, just like that, it was like, oh shit, here they come. What do we do? Well, just fucking go, you know what I mean? Just go. Get in the car and just go. Jeez. Or, try and lead yourself away from it and get to a spot where you can huddle down. But, there's some people that I work with, we're like, fuck it, bro, I'm just going to wait for them.
You've told me about this before. One of your friends just sat there and was like, fuck it.
Fuck it. Yeah. I mean, I won't give him his name, but man, I'll give you his first name. I'm motherfucking crazy. His name is Chris. He's local brother, just full on. It's like, fuck it, I'll just go wait for him. You guys go. I go wait for him. And he fucking waited for him and had a fucking discussion with them and was like, no, but come on, why don't you? And I swear to God, man, he like negotiated it was like he was negotiating a UN meeting. And we could not believe it.
Did he end up doing jail time?
No, fuck no. That's
crazy.
They just fucking harvested all the big fucking plants with all the colas and left all the starters and all the keikis. And it, sometimes it makes you wonder. It's like, where'd all that weed go? You know what I mean? Like, hang on now. You guys didn't burn it over here. You just wrapped it up in a big, huge freaking net and hauled it off somewhere. And, lots of rumors go around that stuff just went back on the street, sold by the police.
No kidding, man. No kidding. It wouldn't be the first time if that did happen.
Yeah, right?
Jeez, that is the legend of Molokai Chris, the fucking the hostage negotiator. He was like,
oh yeah, He's like, come on, man. It was pretty crazy, but I had to distance myself from that cat because I don't like everybody to know my business. You know what I mean? And that guy was like, oh shit, you be seen with him. You're like, yeah, bingo. I know who you are now.
Man,
Bingo, I know who you are now.
The 2,500 plant bust. Molokai is kind of the. I know that there's cannabis grown on every island, but would you say that Molokai is the most cannabis per capita, just because of how few people there are on it?
Yeah, I definitely have to say that. I mean, definitely. I mean, you've been over here. Everybody's got weed in their yard.
Right.
I mean, everybody's got weed in their yard.
Well, now you can go get a card. You can go get a medical card. It would be cooler if you could just grow it like recreationally, but at least people can go get a card, right? And grow how many plants at home?
10 plants.
That's not bad.
No, 10 plants, and that's what people do here. They just get a hui or a collection of people and put all the cards on one spot.
Oh, you're still allowed to stack cards too? That's not bad either. That's good stuff.
Yeah, so you can be a caregiver too, a care provider. So you can grow for other people.
That's huge.
They're trying to get away from that because the problem is people are exploiting that.
Yeah.
To a point where people got to understand once you go past 99 plants, it becomes a federal deal. Whereas, if you keep it under 100, the state's going to be like, okay, cool. But once you start popping over 100 plants and just rubbing people's noses in it, it's when they start to get a little pissy.
It's the same thing Wolfman says, is that like 100 plant differentiator.
Yeah.
But I do like the caregiver programs. If you limit it to 9 people, I still support that caregiver program.
Oh, heck yeah.
Very interesting though. Yeah. Super, super interesting. So you're allowed to grow, you can get a medical card, but still no recreational if you get busted.
Still no recreational. But see, this is the crazy thing is it actually passed the House here for recreational, but it never made it to get signed yet. So I think what they're doing is they're still working out the logistics on who can make the most money once it goes recreational.
Right.
Monsanto, a few years back, aka Monsanto Bayer now, they pushed legislation tried to actually push it through here in the state where they would be the only commercial cannabis grower in the whole state.
Oh, Jesus. Actually producing the product.
Yeah, producing.
I forgot if we talked about this on this show or Growcast TV, but that is a wild leap. And Hawaii is kind of their little test subject. They operate a lot out of Hawaii.
Yeah, we're the fucking, what they call it is parent seed. This is where they do all their fucking crazy genetic fucking research to fucking wreak havoc on the rest of the fucking goddamn world.
Shit, I shouldn't laugh, but I have a dark sense of humor.
No, I mean, it's fucking... Yeah,
we live in the dystopian future for sure. But I've seen it. I've seen it there, and yeah, the people don't like it. Let me tell you that the locals don't dig it.
No, that would be the end of everybody that's growing herb in the whole state. I mean, it would just be devastating.
What other industry are you allowed to do that in? That's insane. I'm glad that didn't become a thing, and I hope that they don't do anything like it because it's just wild. We need to go the other direction, back towards like a farmer's market type direction, which Hawaii does well. It would go well with that agricultural mindset.
Yeah, I mean it's just all politics. This is I helped start a gig called GMO Free Hawaii many moons ago, and one of our first panelists was Mike Gabbard. Mike Gabbard was a local politician. You know what I mean? And he came and did one of our panels, and we was on our local television channel, and we had a great turnout. But and he's a great proponent for anti-GMO. But after our first one, he had a meeting with us. And he's like, "Sorry, I can't ever do these ever again." And he goes, "My personal opinion is, it's evil, it's the devil, and this, that, and the other. But agriculture in Hawaii is political.
The agricultural side of Hawaii is innately politicized."
Yeah, and I met with the, head of Department of Agriculture. We had a hemp conference a while ago, and I've met with him a bunch of times, and every word out of his mouth is like, "Kevin, before we start this conversation one more time, let me tell you, agriculture is political in the state of Hawaii."
Jeez, man.
Yeah, God damn it.
It should not be that way,
No,
it
shouldn't be.
should not politicize growing a plant, any plant, really, but it becomes that way.
Yeah, and it all started with our governor or mayor. His name was Ben Cayetano back in the day, and he solicited these GMO farmers and big ag farmers to come to the state and wrote all kinds of legislation that actually, when they came here, it was like Hawaii State was paying them to be here.
Mm.
It was very, very interesting. Interesting. Agriculture in Hawaii has been interesting since the dawn of
since the dawn of Hawaii.
yeah, ever since there's been agriculture here in the state.
Man, it's got such a rich and deep history. That's what always amazes me about talking to you and growers like you, is there's just so much going on in this place that feels like another world.
Yeah.
It's crazy too. I don't know. I guess when it comes to tropical plants, they thrive in that type of climate, but it's not an easy place to grow things. Like, right? If you throw your average polyhybrid strain out in Hawaii, a lot of times it's going to struggle. All right, we'll be right back with Molokai Kevin, but before that, shout out to the FOOP, everybody. The FOOP, organic fish waste-based nutrients, foliars, cloning, and more. Use code GROWCAST at thefoop.com always. And this month, the FOOP is releasing its Mist Refill Gallon. That's right, I love the FOOP Mist, this ready-to-use, microbiologically enriched, full-spectrum foliar spray that's going to have every nutrient that your plant needs, plus a ton of microbiology. You guys use the FOOP Mist in veg. You absolutely love it. And now, FOOP has the Mist ready-to-use refill. It's a 1-gallon jug, and that means it's ready to go. You can put it in your bottle and get back to spraying that beautiful FOOP Mist. First of all, the concentrate is designed for large commercial growers to use in a backpack, so that saves you guys a lot of time. But FOOP knows that a bunch of growers are refilling the 32-ounce bottles with the FOOP Mist concentrate. Now you can go ahead and grab this gallon of FOOP Mist refill. It's my favorite foliar spray in my garden. I absolutely love it. If you're using FOOP Mist on your indoor plants and you're mixing it up trying to save money, you're going to be much happier with this ready-to-use refill. Also, the amount of peppermint oil is going to be different in the concentration mix. With the ready-to-use mix, you got plenty of that peppermint oil. Keeps your garden smelling minty and fresh. Helps with IPM. We love that peppermint oil in the FOOP Mist. So check it out right now, thefoop.com. Code GROWCAST for 15% off. And FOOP is running an awesome promotion this week. You can get a free FOOP Mist and a free jug of refill with every order over $100. So thefoop.com, code GROWCAST, order over $100 and you get yourself an awesome gallon of FOOP Mist refill. We love the FOOP, certified organic, all natural, all based on fish waste. It's got everything you need. Thefoop.com, always use code GROWCAST. Be healthy, go organic, and use FOOP. Maybe this is a good time to talk about how it's been growing there and what it's like growing there in the climate, right? Especially Molokai, because people get the wrong idea. They think about Hawaii, they think about the Big Island, which is more, you're thinking like a rainforest type scenario. And Molokai, although there is a rainforest portion, I believe, right? It's a different scene. It's like red dirt there. It's like growing on Mars.
Yeah, pretty much. Like on Oahu, we used to go out in the bush. It was lush and beautiful. I mean, the soil back there was amazing. And lots of foliage growing out in the bush, a lot of different wild fruit things. We have mountain guavas and things like that. So whatever would drop in the ground, it would get rooted up, and then we got wild pigs and things like that. And so nature would produce this unbelievable soil and ecosystems back on Oahu, where I was growing back in the mountains out in the North Shore and other areas. But coming here to Molokai, like you said, so much iron oxide, so much iron inside this dirt. I mean, the dirt is like red. You get that stuff on anything and you're stained. So, it was a learning curve. But the thing is like when I got here, when we were doing projects, we first started off with shipping over lots of, media. You'd buy it by the pallets.
Potting mix, like living soil potting mix type stuff.
Yeah, what is that? Sunshine mix number 3 and number 4 and stuff like that.
Sure.
So we would bring that over here in the pallets, and then, we would work that into the soil to add some organic matter. And then, of course, add the BAM and things like that. But, after being here for a little bit, I started to realize we have everything here to amend our soil to make it beautiful, because when we get lots of rain, it comes down, the wash-offs we get all the, lava phosphate and all the super fine lava. And then you get all the different millions of different layers of different soil and everything come down the sides of the mountain. And, funny thing is like, the city and counties would scrape the sides of the road and put these in big piles. And I'd be the cat on the side of the road with two 55-gallon drums in the back of my car, filling it up. I'd fill up one and then go down the next, and people would be driving by and kind of tripping out on what I was doing. And, then I'd go down to the beach and wait for the tides to come in and out. And then I'd be scooping up 5-gallon buckets of what we call, ogo or nori, which is sea kelp.
Damn, you got kelp.
Yeah.
You got FAA, you got fish carcasses, I'm sure, out the wazoo.
Exactly, and then I'd just be like, it's going to take a little bit to do this, but man, when it's a passion, you get all those things together at the right combinations, and you add that to this red soil over here. It's dynamite.
Wow, man.
It's dynamite. But it was difficult, like the learning curve, like we were talking about earlier with some of the strains that you sent over here for me to pop. It's a little different, some
harsh
of them,
climate.
Yeah, it's a little harsh climate. But once they get acclimated, this place is unbelievable. You felt the sun out here. The sun out here is ridiculous.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's the Hawaiian sun. Nothing quite like it. But it's funny the difference island to island. And you're saying that learning curve just going from one island to another. You're telling me that when you plugged into the ground in the rainforest of Oahu, where the fungal networks have been established for, eons and you're tapping into all that bacteria, did you even really amend with any fertilization? Like, did you add minerals, or did you literally just add your beneficial microbes and plug it into the dirt?
Yeah, that was pretty much it.
That's crazy.
There was no need. You know what I mean? There was nothing. I mean, there, in areas, and we would rotate our crops in certain areas, but I mean, there was no need. That stuff was back there. It was like untouched, perfect. Like I say, perfect neutral soil. You know what I mean? Everything and anything that you need to grow any type of plant, any type of thing in the ground right then, there, and ready to go.
It's like the perfect no-till bed. It's like making the absolute perfect no-till gardening system, because there was no tilling.
None.
And that's so crazy. And then switch to another natural ecosystem that's just not as hospitable to the things that we want, equally as beautiful, equally as crazy and foreign and exotic, but way harder to grow in with that high iron red dirt that plants will just die in if their roots hit when they're young. It's so hot. It's just wild, man. Really, really cool. So like you were saying, you do more amending out there. But you mentioned the BAM. I feel like this is a good time to talk about BAM. You brought this up on a member podcast once, and there's a whole history behind it that you like to share. Can you talk about the beneficial anaerobic microbes? Is that it?
Yeah. So BAM was actually, there's a Dr. Tetsuo Higa from Japan was given the task by the Japanese government to discover or put together a beneficial microorganism to help inoculate, clean up Hiroshima and Nagasaki soil after it being toxic so long from the unfortunate event of a nuclear, attack by the United States.
Right. All the radiation.
And so Dr. Tetsuo came up with his form of a beneficial microbe that he used to start inoculating the soils and around the reefs. And a lot of the prefectures in Japan, another problem was that, everybody in Japan, a lot of their runoff water from their sinks and things like that would go out into the ocean. And, rice is a huge prevalent part of their diet out there. And, I don't know, not so much in the mainland, but everybody out here doesn't eat Uncle Ben's. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The rice they get is like, old school rice in a bag. And so you have to wash your rice before you cook it.
Yeah. Good Botan rice. I'm a big rice fan. Hawaii has some good fucking rice.
Man, we got it all out here. So all that sugary runoff would go out into the oceans, and they figured they'd have all these algae blooms that were taking over and killing off all the reefs.
No shit.
And so Dr. Tetsuo he was the original one that made bokashi balls. I don't care, everybody's got bokashi. Dr. Tetsuo Higa was the first OG Bobby Johnson to ever come up with bokashi balls. He was the first originator.
Wow.
And so he would inoculate these bokashi balls and put them outside in the ocean. and they realized that this fucking awesome beneficial was breaking down all the fucking bad algae. So that led into, him doing more research. Well, lo and behold, an old gentleman that I met during my career as growing was his Uncle Harry. Uncle Harry was an old school, no college education, was in the military, was in Okinawa back in the 60s when Dr. Higa was actually over there doing some tests with his beneficial microbes. And so Uncle Harry was originally from the Big Island. He was a pig farmer, old school cat, Japanese cat. He learned from Dr. Tetsuya Higa how to culture his special form of beneficial microbe. Then Uncle Harry was a health and wellness cat, came back to Oahu and, he had his own little pig farm and things like that. And he was actually working with the beneficial microbe for a lot of it for animal husbandry. You know what I mean? He pasture raised pigs. And so he wanted to raise his animals the healthiest and the best way he could.
Whoa.
So he worked on culturing his form of the BAM. And he spent 20 years tweaking on that little magic stuff. And by the time I met him, he had created his own master beneficial microbe. And that beneficial microbe, if you know microbes, most microbes only have a shelf life to 30 to 45 days for their activity level. Well, Uncle Harry's came up with a little symbiotic home for those microbes to lay dormant and get activated when they're introduced to oxygen. And his levels stay active from anywhere from 7 to almost 10 years. Just as active from the first day he created
Jeez.
it. It's a cellular steroid for your plant. It helps break down hard carbons, pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides, and neutralizes those and turns those into CO2 and water vapor.
Wow.
So we would use that, in areas to inoculate our soils because, back in some spots where we were growing, the military started to have a presence. You know what I mean? So anywhere we would go, we'd use that BAM to inoculate our soils to help break down, activate and break down whatever toxins were in there, but also to activate and kick up the boost of whatever beneficials were already existing in the soil. It works together with beneficials. It doesn't attack. I mean, I drink this stuff to this day.
That's right. A lot of people consume these effective microorganisms. So that's wild. It has a wide variety of beneficial effects on the soil, but then it's also used in, like you said, other agricultural forms. Like they feed it to livestock. You can take it. So you do a grow that's based around this product. You do a nice, rich organic soil, and then you add this beneficial anaerobic microbe. And is that about it? I mean, I'm sure you have some other things that you do with, pest control and stuff, but that's primarily the core of your grow style.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, like I said, I try and utilize everything. I'm one of those guys that nature has and provides everything we need. So let's use that. And I've kind of come up with a great little formula for my soil out here from what I have. So like I said, I go and get the ogo and the kelp and the seaweed from the ocean. I get this additives from the rock phosphate, from lava phosphate, from the sides of the road. And, I do my own little mix and match and add the BAM inside that to help break that down and activate more. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I use some fish emulsion, make our own because, everybody goes fishing and diving out here. So I tell people that save their guts. I'll take those. And, there's chicken fighters out here, lots of chickens. So there's a lot of nitrogen from the chickens,
Yeah.
Chicken. And, I got buddies that, like I say, horse manure is probably one of the best additives to soil. I mean, it never will burn your plants. And if you got pasture raised horses, oh my goodness.
That's the good stuff, huh?
Their shit is the shit as an additive. And then here we got deer. So if you're lucky, you can get some deer shit and add that into there too, and you got yourself a pretty good
mix.
Yeah, pretty good mix.
Oh man, yeah, the deer shit, it's everywhere. It's pelletized, it's ready to go. The
It's
Molokai
so
deer shit. Yeah, it's
and
it's crazy.
it's not hot whatsoever. I mean, you could pretty much take that straight from as soon as they shit it out, you could pretty top dress it on a plant and start watering. You don't have to worry about anything.
It's exactly what I hear, right? The pelletized poops are like that.
I'm seriously, it's crazy. I mean, it's next year. I mean, straight from the farm, right out the boot, straight to your
Straight from the tap.
straight from the tap. You know what I mean? You can straight add it to your soils, and it goes off.
Oh shit.
Pretty much it. And you know, we do have a slaughterhouse down here, and you know, I baffled the slaughterhouse guy because I went in there one day and I was like, "Hey, man, what do you do with all your you know when you're cutting meat? What do you do with all your bone your bone tailings?" He was like, What do you mean?" I was like, all your shit that comes off of your saws and all the stuff that it's like, oh, I don't know, we just throw it away. I was like, yeah, save it for me. I'll come and get it. Like I was like, what is that? And I was like, man, you have no idea. That's gold. Bone meal, blood meal, right there on your saws. Come on now. And it's a organic, free range, pasture fed. So sometimes once in a while, go get that. Just throw that in there to add a little flavor to it.
Little slaughterhouse bone meal flavor, baby.
Yeah,
Everything's so local. You're sourcing from around you, which is what what people do when they're on an island, and importing things has become so much more difficult.
yeah.
It really defines the grow style. It's just a crazy, exotic, unique place to grow.
And I do know folks over here that, still use chemicals, chemical fertilizer, pure chemical fertilizers out here for their grow because there's different reasons for why people grow. Some people do it as a passion and some people do it for monetary and they just want a turnover rate, you know what I mean? And the least they have to do, the better for them, you know? So I do know some guys out here, and you can tell the difference. There's people growing the same strains, and there's people doing it, as green as possible, and then there's other guys that are doing it a little more of a chemical style fertilizer. It's a little different. You can always tell the difference. You can tell the difference.
But it seems to me like there's more organic farmers than most places in Hawaii. I see a lot of soil growers. You're right. There are some people using bottled salts, but I was
Yeah.
surprised at how many people are growing in soil in Hawaii. And you got some unique characters out there, man.
Oh God. Yeah.
Really, truly. I mean that in the best possible way. And you talk about these other people like Pineapple Dave, and I mean these
Oh
are
yeah.
these are interesting people. You've told me about a couple of like big Hawaiian names that I'd like to give their credit on the show. I believe you were telling me that they had a big impact on Hawaiian genetics and Hawaiian genetics getting out places. But is there anybody you want to talk about as far as impacting Hawaiian cannabis? Big names, big players, legends of the industry.
Well, these guys, like I said, I don't want to give out too many crazy names, but like Pineapple Dave, like I said, he was an old schooler that came from North California. You know what I mean? He'd been growing herbs since he was knee high to a grasshopper, and I'm gonna be 50, and he's gonna be dang, he's gonna be 60,
He's gonna be old.
60. He's gonna be 65. So he came over and he was one of the guys, like I said, bring a lot of that, like the OG Salmon Creek Big Bud, the Northern Lights, the skunk. He brings some ones from Nepal, the Super Sage, the Sage. He was one of the original guys. I mean, that I work with that did make an impact, especially on Oahu, and busting out those genetics. Over here, there's one that we'll call him the General.
Okay, so I've heard about this. Hold on,
Yeah.
Molokai. Is someone
Yeah.
named only known as the General? I think he tried to sell me insurance once. What's the deal with the
definitely.
General?
Yeah, the General, and he was one of those cats that came back from Vietnam, and bring some of the old original strains from
Oh,
Vietnam,
that makes sense. That makes sense.
and then cross them with whatever else was over here from other cats, and created the Molokai Red, the Molokai. Oh gosh, what was the other one? Molokai doesn't have too many specific names. The Molokai Red is one of the ones that is still by far the most sought after, and I would say the most known over here because most everybody has the same genetics here on this island because everybody's related in one form or fashion. And there's not a lot of availability to other types of strains. Now that these other seed banks that came out and started distributing seeds, and people like, guys from Hawaii, there's more people that move away from Hawaii that live in Hawaii. And so a lot of old schoolers and went to, say, Washington State or, up there in Washington and Oregon, and bring some of those strains from up in Washington and Oregon back here and started crossing and making their own little strains and things like that. I think there's a seed company in Oregon that's supposedly selling a strain from Molokai. I think it's like the Guerilla Goose crossed with something else. I forget that one, actually.
Yeah, and then the Molokai Frost was another one that came up a lot and made its way to the main list.
The Molokai Frost. And, and that one for me is kind of funny because it doesn't get cold worth of shit out here. And they should have called it something else. But yeah, it's kind of like, what are those, an oxymoron.
I guess so, right? I assume it's the trichome coverage that's frosty, but yeah, I mean, you're right.
No, and that one
they should have called it the Molokai Heat.
Yeah, the Molokai Heat or something. But that was because they took an original Molokai strain and crossed with the Alaskan Thunderfuck. So that's my belief. That was where I found out where the genetics come from. So now I don't know if that's what they're touting it, but that's where the Alaskan, because a lot of people here go to Alaska for fishing to make money and then come back when the season's over. And so a lot of guys back in the day were bringing back the Alaskan Thunderfuck.
Bringing back those genetics. So that's because I heard, contentious originating theories on the Frost, but that one makes sense. The ATF coming from Alaska. So that's what you heard, huh?
Yeah, and that's, I'm not saying my guy was 100%, but that dude is pretty, that's what he used to grow back in the day. So if he says it, I'm going to take his word for it. But there are a few folks still out here that are creating their own. Like I said, the Sunday Driver is a huge hit out here. People love that Sunday Driver.
Yeah, they do. It's all over Hawaii, man.
I mean, the Sunday Driver is just the go-to. It just loves it being out here. But there's guys crossing the Sunday Driver with the Gorilla Goo, and trying to create their own deals. Some of the best guys that are growing out here are all chicken farmers because they breed chickens, and it's pretty funny because when I talked to them, I was like, you guys breed chickens, right? And they're like, yeah. And I said, no wonder why you guys are so good at your genetics for your wheat, because wheat and chickens are just the same thing. You're breeding birds, you're breeding herbs, same thing, close. And they never put it together, you know what I mean? And they're like, oh, bro, that's right, huh? And I'm like, yeah, right, you guys good at this? Guys are creating your own genetics because you guys breed your chickens. You guys take like 3, 4, 5 different chickens that you want the genetics for, and you breed those ones back into this one and this one back into that one. Then you take the mother of this one and then the sister of that one, and then they're like,
So there's a lot of crossing going on. I like that when people make their own seeds. It makes sense. People very self-sufficient on Molokai. Might as well breed your own seeds. So you have seeds forever.
Yeah. I mean, there are a couple seed guys over here on this island, but they do it for the different reasons. I think they're more monetary. They're not really about caring about stabilization and selling quality. They're just going for quantity. So I don't like to just, support any seed company specifically.
I hear you. I appreciate the respect, but I think I hear you loud and clear on that one, man.
Yeah.
Hawaii is a crazy place too, because you guys are growing with a wild light schedule. You're doing light supplementation instead of light deprivation, so that you're holding your plants in veg. It's just a very unique place. You can grow all year round. It's very cool.
Yeah, it's totally different. When we first came to Molokai back in the day, it was old school growers. You know what I mean? They would just take seed, and just throw fucking thousands of seeds out, and hopefully go and sex them all, and then just let them go. And oh man, the ratio to just pure plants was just nuts. You get freaking a couple males pop out in the whole thing, and next thing you know, everything is seeded. We worked with a couple when we first got here. We were pretty much. I'm not going to tout it and say we were the first guys, but we came over here and started showing how to clone and do lots of clones. To do just consistency.
Yes.
At this point in time, it was about making a little bit of money, so we wanted consistency, and and cutting down the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, that's a game changer when you get that cloning, cloning capability.
And I will bring up Chris once again, the negotiator. We did a big patch with him, and we're like, listen, man, you cannot do your old school strains by just throwing seeds out there and hoping that you're going to sex them all, because if these guys pollinate, they're going to ruin all our crop. No, I won't go do it. I promise. We're going to do them just like this. Come back, check on him. What does he do? He's got this fucking same old school mentality. Just couldn't help himself. He fucking couldn't help himself. And fucking next thing you know, we got fucking male pollen, and comes down, we got 36 pounds of fucking seeded weed.
No.
And he's like, oh, whoa, well, what can we do with it? It's like, fuck. I don't know. I don't know anybody wants to buy this shit. I guess you know what you're doing. You're going to be bubble hashing that shit for days, partner.
Yup. That is the answer. Extracts, edibles are big now. Probably weren't as big back then.
No, it was a nightmare. It's like, bro, come on. We wasted all this time, energy, thousands of dollars in time, electricity, and and he was like, oh, but I thought, no, that we told you. And that's some of the mentality. Some people just still want to pop old school style.
It's too funny, man.
And which is fine if you're meticulous and you go through all your plants and you just make sure that they're all females and you don't have any hermaphrodites. And so it's still, for some folks, they think that shit is witchcraft. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, old school growers tend to like their ways, you know what I mean? Sometimes they might pull a fast one on you, like good old Chris. Yeah. That's why he's the negotiator.
And we had, and we'd set up, and we came out here and we, set up solar lights outside so we can supplement the lights. And people were like, why are you doing that? It's like, if you don't know, you don't know. And then, people would start asking questions. And next thing you know, if you drive over here, if you drive a fly to Molokai at nighttime and come in, you will see that 90% of everybody is supplementing their lights with solar lights.
What are all these floodlights in people's backyards? What's going on? Is it like Christmas time? What's happening here?
What's going on? And that was a full game changer, because before the solar lights and things like that, we get short season over here, and your plants don't grow but maybe, hip high.
Right. They just flower naturally from the 12-12, right? It's like always 12-12 down there about. So they just flower really early.
They just super flower. So the whole supplementation with the lights to keep them going was a fucking game changer. I used to keep, even when I used to do my stuff on the indoor before I bring them out, it was 23 hours of straight light. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then off them outside, and I'd get them to the height that I wanted, because I knew as soon as I put them outside 3 days later, those suckers were already flowering.
Man, I am excited to come back. I was just out there visiting, and it's so cool. Next time we'll have to do some video in some of the bigger grows. If I could ever take a look at some of the other local grows, maybe some of the larger scale grows, I would really like that, man. Take some footage. We don't even need to have anybody else in it if you want to do it anonymously. I don't know. I would really love to come back and get deeper into the cannabis community there.
Yeah, definitely. Here's some of the people are a little like, close chested. They're kind of afraid of, but there's some cool cats out here that I would love to introduce you to.
Yeah, even some 10 plant growers. I'd just love to see more of that cannabis community.
Yeah, and just recently, we haven't had Green Harvest in a long time, but there's jealousy and animosity out here. You know what I mean? I mean, like anywhere you go, but since we're such a small island, some people get jealous. And we had a Green Harvest about 3 weeks ago, and they came in and just selected certain growers and nabbed them all.
Damn. Were people arrested, or did they just crush the plants and go?
No, this is another funny thing. They didn't do anything but take the plants.
What? Get out of here.
Nobody got arrested. They got tickets though, so they're all going to have to go to federal court because everybody had over 100 plants.
Jeez.
You know, some people had 90 pounds of weed, some people had 60 pounds of weeds, but they all had over 100 plants.
Wow.
And rumor goes around that certain people, pointed fingers or gave the heads up and blah blah blah, and it goes to that corruption thing where it just shows that still to this day, even though people can be cool and grow their own herb, there's still this full animosity towards other people that might be doing a little bit better than them. You know what I mean?
And still this threat in 2023 that you might get, Camp or Green Harvest kicking down your door.
Yeah,
that's nuts. That they're gonna have their day in court, but they left them with tickets and they took their plants. That's wild.
Yeah, and it just so happens that one of my friends owns the air transport company over here, and they put it on their planes and took it back to Oahu.
Jesus Christ, man, it's a world unlike any other out there. It seems like it kind of runs on its own rules even at times, and it feels like a different country or a different world. So
yeah, we call Molokai Third World Molokai. It's the Wild Wild West of the Pacific.
That is how it feels, man.
It is definitely something like nowhere else in the whole United States, let alone even in the state. That's the whole crazy part about it. But it's, I think, the most awesome place in the United States. I mean, but then again, that's personal preference for me.
You can say, you're allowed to say it, man. That was cool. You were right there. You're never moving. You're staying there forever?
You know what? I'm pretty sure this is where they're going to put my cremation, is under a Pakalolo plant.
I'm going to put your bones? Top dress with your bone dust?
Top dress with my bone dust. That's what I'm thinking. I mean, I have a daughter and she's now migrated to the mainland. But as of now, I'm pretty happy here. This place it called me. And doing some cool things here, with the community. And I love it. It's a place to free your mind and also grow some awesome herb.
Man, I love this little glimpse into the world of Molokai. It seems so deep. So just to get an hour interview and talk about this unique cannabis culture was absolutely incredible, from growing there to the genetics. And it's cool to talk to a cat like you, man. This is a Growcast exclusive, so it's really neat. You don't have an Instagram to drive anyone to, or a website or anything. You're just out there. You're doing your thing, and we appreciate you showing us what a day in the life is like, and your backstory as well.
Yeah. No, thank you, man. I'm stoked that you're out there doing your amazing thing and bringing other growers together and sharing knowledge. And people need, to work as together to help, doesn't go sound funny, fight the man, because when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, they still want control of it. But if you're just doing your thing and you're spreading the love and the knowledge, people can become their own farmers and stay out of the whole corporate gig of it all, and provide some amazing stuff for this planet and for the communities that they're in.
100%, man. Well, we appreciate you. Growcast is a big fan of Molokai Kevin. So you take care, my friend. Anything you need from us, you let us know.
Definitely. And anything I could do, like I said, man, it's an honor to be on your show. It's an honor to share whatever knowledge I have. I mean, everybody can learn from each other. That's the crazy thing. Some people think they, might be narrow-sighted, but you can learn anything from anybody. Somebody has something good, even bad, to teach you. You know what I mean? It's an awesome place, and it's awesome for you to give me the opportunity to talk and be out there. And anytime that I would love, at any time to be on your show and your listeners.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah.
Some stories. And it's thank you so much. You're awesome, and your audience is awesome.
Definitely a member favorite, everybody. Molokai Kevin, quickly a legend in the Growcast community. All right, man, you take care of yourself. We're going to wrap up the show here. And again, anything you need from Growcast, you just holler. Thank you one more time, Kevin. Today was awesome.
You're welcome. Thank you. It was awesome.
All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you, members. Like I said, make sure to follow everything we do, see all the action at growcastpodcast.com/action. You'll hear all about it after the show. Be safe out there, everybody. This is Jordan River and Molokai Kevin signing off. We'll see you later. Grow smarter.
Aloha.
That's our show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know you loved chatting and hanging out with Molokai Kevin, a good friend of mine. Before we wrap it up, find out everything we're doing in the Growcast universe at growcastpodcast.com/action. There you can check out our masterclasses. We're doing tours all over. We are doing Growcast Seedco, of course. Membership is currently closed for registration, but we might be opening up to some of you. Make sure to email us if you want to apply to get in. contact@growcastpodcast.com. Right now, we're keeping our community a little insular, but see everything we're doing. We got some awesome classes coming up. We have some Seedco drops about to hit, so make sure to follow us. Follow us on Instagram at Growcast. Stay tuned. You can also get on our green list, which is our free email list. We're going to be doing some more giveaways there. Be ready for that. And stay tuned, everybody. Some awesome content headed your way. All right, that's all for today. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you, and we'll see you next time on Growcast. Bye-bye.
He's like, Kevin, before we start this conversation one more time, let me tell you, agriculture is political in the state of Hawaii.